Is your diet traumatizing you? Let's find out. Welcome to the Holistic Life Navigation Channel. I'm your host, Luis Mujica. I'm a somatic educator and nutritionist, and I'm here to explore every aspect of life through the lens of somatic psychology, nutrition, and philosophy. Let's dive in. This conversation of the intersection between trauma and nutrition is endlessly fascinating to me. I began my work and my career as a nutritionist. I started by majoring in psychology, dropped out of college because I wasn't interested in the DSM and diagnosing people, and went on to study nutrition and open up a private one-on-one nutrition practice, which also is very similar to a one-on-one therapy practice because of my training and education in psychology, but I really focused on nutrition. But by doing so, by having this kind of dual background in psychology and in nutrition and herbalism, I was always looking at the relationship between the mind and emotions and emotional overwhelming experiences and someone's dietary habits, someone's illnesses, somebody's autoimmune diseases and symptoms and syndromes and how they expressed, and if these things were connected. So years and years and years of doing this. One time, this 1 week in my practice, these 3 different women came in and they were all married to somebody they didn't really like. It was someone they married very young and just was not interested in them anymore. And these women were in their 40s, so we're talking 20 plus years of marriage to someone they had very little desire or interest in. And I remember each of them separately, and they didn't know each other at all. These were all separate sessions throughout the week, on different days even. And I remember saying to them, let's see what it's like to reduce and then eliminate chocolate for a little bit, because they were having a hard time sleeping. And they said, I can't get rid of chocolate. And I said, why? And they said, if I get rid of chocolate, I have to divorce my husband. And that was the light bulb moment for me. That food is beyond just emotional support. It completely changes our biochemistry. The charge that would meet them, the charge that would meet the decision in them, I should say, to leave their husband was consistently avoided by eating chocolate. Eating chocolate allowed them to bypass a boundary in their body, which was to leave. And I got interested in what is this biochemistry? So I started studying these things for the next couple of years. And then when I ran into the nutritionist Karen Hurd, who developed the Beam Protocol, I got so validated of my findings of the relationship between adrenaline production and certain foods. And if you understand trauma through a lens of biochemistry, you understand that traumatic experiences, PTSD, chronic stress, insomnia, these symptoms and expressions that emerge in bodies from people that experience trauma and lots of stress, what's really happening is an overproduction of adrenaline. The adrenal glands are fired. They're constantly working. They're fired up. And that fires up the nervous system and the brain and creates a lot of clarity and a lot of stimulation. It raises your blood pressure. It constricts your blood vessels. This whole physiology emerges from this biochemical reaction of adrenaline when you're having an ongoing stress or a traumatic experience. So I started getting curious, well, what about food? Because what I learned through the years was different foods had different properties, different characteristics, different ways they affected individuals' nervous system and individuals' adrenals and breath and heart rate and even the way they felt about themselves. So I put foods into 3 categories: stimulants, depressants, and balancers. And I learned that the stimulants were foods that turned on your adrenals. And they're always turned on, so I don't even like to use that phrase, but it's just understandable if I say it that way. It ignites your adrenals, causes them to work a little harder, causes them to be stimulated, which stimulates your whole body. Then there's foods that depress your system, foods that quiet the body by exhausting it, by slowing things down, by focusing so much on digestion that panic and stress and anxiety can't even be physically felt anymore because all your blood is coming down to your stomach to digest this really big meal. And then we have the balancers. These are foods that nurture your body. They don't fire up your adrenals. They don't overexcite your brain or your nervous system. They balance your blood sugar. And they create such a stability in the body that they gift your body the ability to experience what you're going through. So To sum it up, to make it simple, the stimulants are foods like caffeines, sugars, and chocolate. These foods stimulate the body by igniting the adrenals, exciting the nervous system, and even fluctuating blood sugar levels, which I'll get into in a moment. Hey, I'm hopping in to let you know that next week, next Wednesday, the 29th, I am hosting a webinar called Cravings Destigmatized. The webinar is from 4 p.m. to 5:30 p.m. Eastern. You can register through the link right below in the episode details, and you can learn so much more about what I'm talking about in this video. Again, Wednesday, May 29th, 4 p.m. Eastern. Everyone gets a replay, so if you can't make it live, you can still register and we'll email you the replay. Okay, back to the video. The depressants are foods that are really overwhelming to eat because they're so rich in calories. These are foods like fried foods, excess of refined carbohydrates, so foods like breads and cookies and crackers, potato chips, processed heavy foods, fat heavy foods like certain cheeses and milk and creams, baked goods, wine, cannabis, all these things are the depressants. The depressants, like I said earlier, are so rich in calories that they take a lot of digestive energy. So if you're feeling stress, and usually when we feel stress, the energy rises up here, like that feeling before a panic attack. Well, stress can be soothed by eating comfort foods, and these are the depressant foods I'm talking about, which pull your energy, your blood down to your liver and pancreas and stomach and intestines so your body can focus on digestion. And then once those foods are metabolized and the focus is no longer on digesting, guess what happens? You go right back to the experience of stress you had before. And this is what fuels the cycle of binge eating. This is what fuels the impulse and compulsive cycle of overeating and then feeling bad about it and then overeating again. Because your body's just trying to remediate that charge, and the food temporarily does so by depressing your system. Now, the reason why sugar is such an adrenalizing food is every time you eat sugar and it spikes your blood sugar, you have to create a big spike of insulin to lower the blood sugar. And then it's so low, your body has to adrenalize to excavate all that glucose that is now stored in your muscles and your liver. So your body goes through this whole roller coaster ride of sudden sugar rush, which makes you feel really high and gives you a dopamine experience or a dopamine result. And then you go so low because the pancreas excretes insulin, which is so good at excavating blood sugar that your blood sugar drops and you feel low. And then your body adrenalizes to try to get the excess glucose that's been stored or put in the liver somewhere, or other muscles and tendons. This is important. Simply put, when you eat sugar, enough sugar that spikes your blood sugar levels, you're going to also then have an adrenaline spike. And this is why sugars are part of the stimulant category. And this is why depressants, like let's say a big slice of cake, the fat, the richness of the icing and the sugar and the calories from the refined carbohydrates, the flour and the cake is enough to slow down your body because you have to digest and work on it. And then you get a huge rush once it's digested because all this sugar and glucose is in your body, not just the sugar itself, but the flour that becomes sugar. And then because of this huge rise in blood sugar levels, you create a big insulin spike, and then you have an adrenal spike. So you temporarily soothe yourself, but then bam, it all comes rushing back up. This is so important because we get in these cycles of comfort eating and addiction because we're messing with our biochemistry and we don't even know it. This is why I am philosophizing and putting forward this concept of our diet possibly being traumatic if we're seeing trauma through a biochemical lens, not through an event lens. And somatically speaking, we see trauma through the lens of what the body does in response to a situation, not the situation itself. So when you go through something and it's extremely stressful and your nervous system fires up and your adrenals fire up and then your body settles or regulates, we don't really see that as a trauma. I mean, it could be a traumatic experience, but you're not traumatized from it. Your body metabolized and moved through it. But when your body doesn't get the chance to metabolize it, when your body doesn't get a chance to rest and repair, then we tend to categorize that as a traumatic experience and the body becomes traumatized, or at the least or most, depending on the situation, becomes chronically stressed. And your adrenals will eventually overworked to the point where you are exhausted, you are inflamed, and you start having autoimmune issues and different illnesses and symptoms. Insomnia, stress, anxiety, overeating, you name it. So what's fascinating to me about diet is that the foods we eat, if we're living off stimulants and depressants all through our day, so waking up and stimulating ourselves to get through the day, then depressing our bodies to be able to sleep at night, we are constantly rupturing our internal systems. We're constantly firing our adrenals. We're constantly overwhelming our blood sugar levels, overwhelming our brains and nervous systems, and creating this panic in our body to have to deal with these foods and these food habits and the characteristics and properties from these foods. Not to mention the stress that's happening outside of our body that triggers the need to comfort eat in the first place. So internally, just from the foods we're eating, the body's not getting a chance to rest. The adrenals are consistently being turned on in excess. The biochemistry of that looks very similar to that of someone that has PTSD and has gone through an extremely traumatizing experience. So maybe you're not traumatized the way you might think, but your biochemistry, your physical body and physiology is going through the same amount of stress as if you were actually having an external threat or stressor occur. Enter the balancing foods. The balancing foods are our whole foods. These are our beans and our grains and our nuts and our whole fruits and vegetables and good amounts of animal protein, which just mean like the size of your palm without your fingers, once or twice a day with your meals. These foods are so not stimulating or depressing. They simply nurture the body. They nurture the adrenals. They balance blood sugar levels, and they contribute to your body having stability through the day. So when you experience stress and big situations in life, you're able to respond to them with much more space, much more resilience, and much more flexibility compared to your body being so internally stressed from the food that when something externally stressful occurs, you can't even handle it because there's very little space and resilience and capacity inside because your body's been stressed from food all day long. I find this fascinating. I've been teaching this intersection of food and trauma for a long time now, and I'm doing a 6-month nutrition group, which I'm very excited about. It's my first one ever, and it starts in July. All the information you need is right below in the episode details. You can sign up for the waitlist now, or depending on when you see this video, you can purchase it and register. All the info is there. I look forward to seeing you and diving in for 6 long months about nutrition, about protein, carbohydrates, fats, sugars, how to titrate in a balancing diet for your body so you have more stability, more space, and more connection to you and the relationship you have with food. Thank you for watching today's episode. Please like and subscribe if you found it useful, and let me know in the comments what you want me to cover next.